Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 51 of the Whitey and Will Sports Show. Today is Sunday, October 30th. We have got one last Effingham High School football game to talk about today. That is pretty much the agenda for the night. A few other things to hit on in the high school sports scene, but mostly talking about the Hearts. Effingham's football season came to an end yesterday up at Rochester in the first round of the 4A playoffs. They got beat kind of soundly in what turned out to be a 45-14 final. It was a game that was not that one-sided at halftime. It was a tie game with 61 seconds to go before halftime, but Rochester scored a quick touchdown and then scored 24 unanswered points in the third quarter and ended up running away. So that does it for the Effingham season. So I figure we'll break that game down a little bit. We'll talk about that game, and then also maybe just sort of talk about the season. You know, lots of seniors on this team, so a lot of kids to talk about.
Hey, Rochester's extra point kicker, female.
Yes.
Boy, I heard her when she kicked the field goal. You guys were very impressed, but it sounded like she had plenty of leg.
Yeah, Zoe Cormier, and she was. I didn't realize it the first. I didn't realize it until I read her name. I was like, well, this is. I haven't come across too many high school boys named Zoe. So then at halftime, I was watching, and she was out there doing some warm up kicks, and I was like, well, yeah, this is definitely a young lady out there. Boy, she could kick the ball. Let me tell you something. Both teams had a good field goal kicker on hand.
Listening to your broadcast, you could tell special teams, both teams could kick it deep.
Yeah.
Sound like Pontius did a really a good job punting, got a lot of work in. And the one time the young man from Mr. Do-It-All, Mr. Reese punted, he wanted to get off a 50-yarder.
A 50-yarder that was downed at the 2, no less.
Yeah.
So not only did he kick it deep, but he put it.
So I remember when that happened, you guys said, the Hearts had nobody back. Were they thinking it was going to be a fake since he's the quarterback, you think?
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, I assume that they had seen tape and knew what they were looking for. And if you look the stats up, I knew that Reese was also their punter for the most part.
Right.
So, he didn't take a real deep snap. So that could have thrown things off a little bit. Like he was not as far back as you typically see a punter. So I don't know if that was the case or if it was just they were at midfield about thereabout. So they were kind of thinking, well, he's gonna have to be perfect for this to hurt us. And so we'll just rush everybody. I'm not exactly sure what the thought process there was, but it worked out real well for Rochester. Effingham actually ran some good plays to get out of that backed up position.
Yeah, they had a decent drive going, ran into a penalty or something, I think.
Yeah. So that game, again, I kind of alluded to it. It was a tale of two halves. Effingham won the toss, deferred as they are wont to do. That's Coach Hefner's style.
Right.
And so Rochester's first play from scrimmage, a design run for their quarterback, Keaton Reese, who, by the way, he's a 6-foot senior, 250 pounds. He's a big boy. When I first saw him, I didn't realize, I didn't really think about it. And I hadn't seen much of him. But when you saw him play in person, not built like a quarterback and not really built like a running back either. He's built more like kind of an undersized lineman, quite honestly.
Short tight end, almost a short tight end.
But first play was a design run, and they stripped him. They stripped him of the ball. It was after a touchback. And he lost it. Effingham recovered the fumble, and
about 16, I think it was.
Yeah, scored a quick touchdown.
And they put a drive together. Granted, they got a first down, and then it was able to finish the drive and score. And you thought, man, they're going to be able to run the ball a little bit. Their defense could maybe give them fits, and it's kind of funny on the fumble. Greg had that Peter Brady moment again. When his voice cracks, which is awesome because that's just the sheer exuberance.
Well, listen, we all know what happened the last time Effingham went to Rochester to play a football.
Yeah, I was there.
And that Rochester is Rochester. It's a team that won 8 state championships in 10 years. Not that, and not that streak ended not that long ago. So they're consistently successful. And so you I mean, we talked all pregame about how if Effingham can play, Effingham needs to come out and do something early to prove that they can play with them, to make sure that Rochester understands that they're in a game and that they're not going to roll over them like they
Right.
have done to so many teams this year. And then you get exactly, I mean, you couldn't draw it up any better as far as what Effingham needed to happen.
Yeah.
But Rochester is very good. And the next 2 touchdowns were theirs. And Rochester turned the ball over 4 times in the first half.
4 times in the first half. What,
And
3 fumbles and a pick?
3 fumbles and a pick. And by the way, that first fumble, Eli Middendorf recovered it too. And I couldn't see at the time who it was, didn't get it written down.
Right.
But he had a fumble recovery on that.
And that's the kid who just played against Herod, was his first game.
Yeah, absolutely. So he
like number 75.
Yes, I believe that's right. Yeah, number
Well,
7.
I saw the little video clip on Springfield News, and I thought, oh, I don't remember seeing that kid at a Hart game. So that must have been the kid.
Well, he stands out in the crowd. We talked about him a little bit, but 6'1", 320 is what he's listed at.
Big boy.
And a junior. So
yeah,
he'll be back, and hopefully for a full season next year. But Effingham got that 7-0 lead. Then Rochester scored a couple times, right? They scored 2 touchdowns, made it 14-7, but Effingham was able to, again, capitalize on a penalty, or on a takeaway rather, and put together a little drive with good field position to tie it back up. 61 seconds go before halftime. Effingham ties it, and you're thinking, we're going to get the ball first.
Yeah, if we can survive this minute, now we get the ball first. And how many third quarters does Effingham come out and go on a 12-play, 75-yard drive?
Because that's what we always talk about too, is that this coaching
staff,
and something that Greg and I make the mistake of doing too often is that we say Coach Hefner, but right. It's the Effingham coaching staff. They go in, they go into the halftime, and they make good. They just make good adjustments, based on how the game is going. And usually come out in that third quarter. And
it's easier to make your adjustments at halftime like that. You're all together. You've got a captive audience, because you can't say, okay, we're getting beat here, we're going to change the way we scheme and block this. No, at halftime you got a chance to do it. I was working in the yard, listening to you over a weedy or a blower and a mower, mulching leaves, and then all of a sudden they go right down and score.
They really, I mean, it didn't even take them the full minute and 1 second. They took them about 50. It was about 50 seconds. It was in the pass play to score the touchdown was from 11 yards out, off the hands of one Rochester receiver into another one. Kind of a fluky play. If they don't complete that, then who knows?
Was that on fourth? Was that on 4th down?
Off the top of my head, I don't recall.
I want to say it was at least 3rd down.
But it was late. There were only 7 seconds left. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You're only going to be able to run one more play, even if it isn't 4th.
Or they may bring in their kicker and get points.
Who she did kick a field goal later in the game, a 34-yarder with some to spare. So so all of a sudden, instead of going into halftime tied, you're down a touchdown. And then you compound that by coming out after halftime and giving the ball away immediately. And
didn't Effingham throw a pick like first play?
Yep. It was just a tough day throwing the football for the Hearts. We can get into that because this was Tanner Pontius's last game as an Effingham quarterback, and it wasn't a good one. I'm not going to lay it all at his feet though, because he just
didn't have a lot of time.
No time. I don't think.
The highlights, what I saw on Springfield, and it just looked like edge rushers for Rochester were pretty quick, and they were just beating the Hearts around the corner.
They weren't doing anything fancy. No, it wasn't like it was.
I kept thinking they were okay. They're blitzing. They're giving him all kinds of problems, and no, it sounds like they were just, R5 or R4 against your 5. We're just going to beat you.
And that was the talk in the press box before the game. There were some people who were, familiar with the team. We were kind of chatting about who does what, and so we'd be ready. And they told us, they said, this is a Rochester team that isn't beating people the way that they classically have. I mean, don't get me wrong, they can throw the ball around, and they did. Okay, they threw for more passing yards against Effingham than anyone has all season long. But the talk was they're so good defensively, and it's not just they just disrupt in the backfield. They get in there and not necessarily getting a lot of sacks, although they had 5 sacks yesterday, but just not giving a quarterback time to have any sort of a rhythm. And that's the thing. I think 4 of the 5 sacks that Tanner took yesterday, he had no chance. Like, there's nothing he could have done. There was one where he stepped up in the pocket and probably had an opportunity to either run or get rid of it, and held on to it too long. But even then, it wasn't like he had an eternity. It was pretty rough. So,
well, and I also heard early on a lot of his passes, I think he was high with the ball.
yes, they did have the classic.
The opportunities he had early to throw, he was up with the ball a lot.
That was the problem. They could have hooked up, and they tried to run a couple of the quick plays that have worked so well for them this year. Caden Coberline has caught 1 or 2 passes out of the backfield every game this season. It's the same play. They just run it. He starts in a blocking back position and then slants out to the right, and Tanner dumps it to him. The blocking is set up. It just works for them, and it almost always gets you, a first down, and sometimes a lot more. And this time they had to play, and both times he was open, and both times it was over his head. So and I do think that there's a couple of things that could be happening there. For one thing, you get a little jumpy as a quarterback. It's a big moment, and you just don't have your touch. But also, if once you take that first sack, then it's easy to get, or at least it seems to me like it would be easy to get your feet kind of happy back there.
Well, when you can't set your feet, a lot of times you can't step and throw, it's hard to be accurate, because that's how you throw a good ball. And
I mean, it all comes back to Rochester just being more than a handful. I think Effingham did what they needed to do as far as making sure that they set a good tone. And you said that you heard that their quarterback, Keaton Reese, even said, they came out and they punched us right in the mouth to get things started. And
I mean, that was his interview I saw on 1450 on their Twitter page. And he said, Effingham came out and punched us in the mouth right from the beginning and stunned us.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, okay, no, he says they punched us in the mouth, took the ball away, then they scored. And it's like, because that's been the talk. I've heard other interviews with Coach Leonard, and he was concerned about getting ready for the week, that they had a bad practice or 2 bad practices during the week. And, one was because it was raining and they're indoors, they had volleyball regional, and, they were sharing a facility because they're hosting. And, it was just got them out of their norm. And then they had another practice. He said, we just started out like crap. And he said, guys, we cannot just show up with Rochester on our shirts and win. This team's too good.
Yeah.
And like I said, and he kind of alluded to in the interview also, it was kind of a wake-up call. And the Reese kid even said, and we talked about it last week, they'd really only had meaningful post, second half snaps in really one game. And the Reese kid says, we got guys that haven't made a playoff run before on this roster, because they have like 2 years where they've been knocked out early. And he says, we don't have that experience. And a lot of these guys are young and, could get caught up in, hey, we just show up and win. And they regrouped well and then played their game.
Well, the Reese kid sounds to me like a pretty mature young man, and he responded. He ended up, like I said, with more passing yards than any quarterback has put up against the Hearts all year. I had him at 367, and their Max Preps page had him at 360, so pretty similar, 21 out of 35. I mean, they had more than 500 yards of total offense in that game. And Effingham's defense has been
really, really good all year.
So that just shows you something. And again, Rochester, an excellent defensive group as well. This is a good team, I just think 45-14 doesn't completely tell the story. But Effingham shouldn't hang its head too much about that game. I think that they ran into a receiver that they just could not stop. The kid is named Parker Gillespie. He's a junior for Rochester. He's a 5'10", 155-pound receiver. But boy, he gets open, and I mean open. And once he catches the ball, good luck. He had a dozen catches yesterday, 270 plus yards. I don't know. Nothing Effingham's seen this year, and they faced some good receivers. They faced some good passing teams, but nothing quite like this, I don't think. And the thing that Rochester did is that they ran so many empty backfield sets with 4 and 5 wide receivers. And so that's a lot to think about. That's a lot to cover. And yet they, even with minimal personnel on the line, were still able to give the quarterback time to make his throws. Now, granted, he's not doing deep drops and throwing downfield. These are, pretty quick pass plays and then letting your athletes do the work. But still, how many times this season do we call Michael Love's name? How many times do we call Logan Heil's name? Those guys that get in the backfield, hit the running back for a minimal gain or hurry up the quarterback or sack the quarterback. They were neutralized yesterday because Rochester
was so good up front. Running things.
Yeah, so good up front and so well executed in their plays. I mean, it's just a really good football team, and they got Breeze Central next. I don't profess to be an expert on Breeze Central, obviously, but I think they will have I think they're going to have their hands full. They didn't strike me as a team that's like destined for a state semifinal. Is it semifinal where they would get back with Sacred Heart Griffin, or is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't know if that'll happen or not. I'm not sure, but they're pretty good. There's no shame.
Well, but here's the big advantage Rochester has is if they're playing well and their timing's good, there's not a lot of 4A teams that can defend 4 and 5 receivers consistently.
Yeah.
They just don't have the personnel to do it.
Yeah, it's tough,
because they don't do it a lot.
It's and it's not just like guys are just lining up out there to create confusion. I mean, they have other guys who can and have
guys who can catch the ball.
Yeah. I mean, they're a talented, deep team, and that's very difficult to deal with, and really not something that Effingham sees all the time on its schedule. They do see it some. I mean, Effingham played a good schedule this year, but even like St. Teresa's not running that kind of stuff at you.
No.
Even Muhammad's not running that kind of stuff at you. Mount Zion does it some, and did it successfully. But, it was, the point I want to get across is that it was a good matchup for Effingham. I had hoped that they would keep it closer than that, but they did for a half. And I think that, if you get a couple of things to go your way a little bit more early in the third quarter, then it's at least a bit of a battle. I will also say that Rochester more or less didn't do much of anything in the fourth quarter. I think at that point they've got the game under control, and they're not gonna show anybody anything else at that point, right? Like they've got another game to play. So,
and 42 points for Rochester. It sounds goofy, but generally they score more than that.
Yeah, and I think most of their games this season, they could have, even.
Well, I think other than Sacred Heart Griffin, who beat him pretty soundly, 62-26.
Yeah, something like that.
I think maybe Chatham, maybe Jacksonville held them under 40.
Chatham held them to 27, as I recall. Let me look at their schedule real quick. Sacred Heart Griffin beat them 62-27. Then the only other team to hold them under 40 points this year was Chatham Glenwood. That was a 27-14 game. So,
and really, anybody hold them? 42's got to be Did they beat Jacksonville 41 to something or?
42-14 was the Jackson.
Yeah. So that's comparable to the fourth place team in the Big Eight.
Yeah. Effingham ends up 5-5, and you could look at that and say, at least you made the playoffs. But I really do, I think that this Effingham team was, better than a 500 team, better than a lot of 5-4-ish teams that the Hearts have had throughout the years. It's just you ran into some. Again, you look at those first two games of the season, really good teams. Highland at the back end of it. Again, in some of those old days of the Apollo Conference, when you had, you played 7 conference games and you had some of those smaller schools in there. This is an Effingham team that wins 7 or 8 games,
Well, and of your 5 losses, 4 of them are still playing into the round 2 of the playoffs.
Absolutely. Yeah. Muhammad had absolutely no trouble. Highland destroyed somebody. I think, obviously Mount Zion lost.
To be honest, I think for your 4 teams that gave you 5 of your losses will still be playing a week from now.
No, yeah. I don't see St. Teresa or Muhammad losing until, the second.
I think if you keep tabulating playoff points, just for shits and giggles, they may end up probably in the top 10 in the state in playoff points if you take them all the way through the end of the year.
So probably, again, there were 23 seniors, I think, on this Effingham.
Yeah, that was a lot of seniors.
Yeah, and there's some guys that you're gonna miss everybody. I'm not in practice every day, but there's a lot of guys on there that were every down type of guys on offense or defense, sometimes
right.
Both. First of all, we talk about quarterbacks a lot, and obviously it's always a challenge to replace a starting quarterback. Tanner Pontius, if he hadn't got hurt his sophomore year, would have been a 3-year starter for this team.
Right.
And that's, that's too bad that happened. You had an injury, and then also, just the fact that all the COVID stuff really screwed things up. It, he turned into a very good player for Effingham, but you can't help but think about what it would have been like if he'd just gotten 3 normal seasons to play the position.
Sure.
What would have been there, but still, a big kid who throws the ball well when he has time, and turned into a pretty good runner.
And throws an effective deep ball. It's just Rochester wasn't going to give him time to throw the deep ball.
Yeah, they didn't. They couldn't even. Any time that they dropped back to try to throw a deep, ostensibly to try to throw the ball deeper, he just never had time to get it off. Any pass that he actually was able to throw was just, quicker stuff.
Right.
John Westendorf, another guy I just wanted to mention because he didn't get the season he wanted.
Right.
And who knows what things look like if you have him and Dustin still able to run the ball. If Dustin progresses, there's so many what ifs, obviously. Who knows how Dustin progresses if he doesn't get leaned on the way he did this year. But it would have been nice. It would have been nice to see what the offense looks like with that with the feature back that you intended to have.
Right. Who did a good job as a junior. So, it's not like, maybe this kid can do this. He was a known commodity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know. I guess I can go down the list real quick. We don't have to say a ton of words about everybody, but I've gotten started on this. Garrett Wolf is in there, and he's a kid. He's had his health issues also. And it's nice just for him to be able to get back on the field, and a confident kid. Just he has all those Wolf boys have it, right? Like they just. The way they carry themselves, that's important to a team. Give you a little bit of swagger, I think. That's
they get that confidence from their mother.
Is that right?
Yep.
And Jack Harper was a great addition to the team this year. Very good defensive back, and helped with. I think a weakness for the team last year was definitely pass defense. And Jack Harper was able to really help solidify that, along with Armando Estrada, who
Yeah, you moved Armando from one side of the ball to the other, and then you had a kid whose family moved back to town. Really, were your two best defensive backs.
yeah, absolutely. It made a big difference. And against a team like Rochester, there's only so much you can do if you're not able to put pressure on the quarterback. These guys can't do everything, but even yesterday, they both managed to make some good plays at times. It's just hard to do you can't do it every time, right? Like it's not a job that's designed to neutralize. You can't neutralize a wide receiver every play. You have to get help from the other guys on the field to make sure that you don't have to break up a pass every time. So Muhammad Freeman, as Greg likes to mention every time that we bring him up now, the homecoming king. But also, when he got a chance to run the ball, did a great job. Big kid, it was fun to see him get that time late in games. Connor Simmons was a senior on this team, a DB, and also listed as a wide receiver. Caden Walls, another wideout. He was a dynamic guy on offense. We already mentioned Pontius. I'm just going down the list here. Carter Bushu and Miles Maxiden. Maxiden had a fumble recovery yesterday. He's one of the guys that had a fumble recovery, and Carter Bushu was just another guy that could catch a pass if needed.
Right.
Another wideout on the team. London Wrinkle's a defensive player that you heard his name an awful lot.
Well, so far every kid you've mentioned, I've heard a lot.
Yeah. Chris Himwall, listed as a linebacker and a running back.
He got hurt, didn't he? Miss the last couple of games.
Yeah, he did. Absolutely, you're right about that. He was a contributor for the team, and then had that was one of those deals where he got hurt. And he tried to come back, played a little bit more, and then had to come off again, as I recall. And so, you hate to see that. Always hate to see a senior season end with an injury instead of just on the field in that last game. Evan Weymouth did whatever was asked of him. Ran the ball for a time when you had injuries to your running backs, and was a pretty good defensive back once they moved him into that position full time. Second half of the season, he had the interception yesterday. So, a kid who can do whatever you need him to. Jacob Foster, Blake Bushu, couple of linemen on the team.
Foster's center, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Riley Crane, he's another lineman. Trinity Womack, lineman. Josh Kelly on the line. We get down to Logan Heil. I hope to see some good things out of him on the basketball court this year. I hope that he's made the strides as a basketball player that he did as a football player, because he really became on the defensive line a force. A big kid, but moves.
Looked like he got a little quicker. Maybe slimmed down a hair.
I think he kind of, to me, seems like he bulked up a little bit, but yet exactly.
He got a little V in him.
He did what 17-year-old boys do a lot, when they spend some time in the weight room. I wouldn't know much about it because I was too lazy, but
I was more of a pear shape.
Kobe Coburn's a guy listed on the line along with Kane Harmon. Colton Loy, a tight end who caught his first two catches this season. I think maybe his first two catches of his career were both touchdowns. Yeah. So, and he caught one yesterday, the last complete pass yesterday, which actually Gage Gillum threw, junior for Effingham, came in and threw the last pass of the game.
So is he next in line, Gillum?
Well, he's been the guy, he's been the guy to come in anytime that,
I don't follow their lower levels enough to know if they've, what they've got coming as far as, because you have so much, you don't have the old freshman, sophomore levels anymore. It's like all one.
Yep. You just have JV basically, right? It seems like you could either do JV or fresh soft. Like, I don't know. Nobody does three anymore. It used to be that Effingham had all three,
Monday, Thursday, Friday were your game.
Mm-hmm. And I used to, back in the newspaper days, spend a lot of time covering those Monday, Thursday games because the editor did not want to do that.
You're hard pressed because if you don't let some juniors play, if they're not playing at the varsity level, now they're not getting the time, they're not getting the reps. But you're also, by doing that, you can cut into reps of some freshmen or some sophomores as well.
Yep. Last senior, Connor Thompson, tight end on the team, and a very effective one. He got a lot of big passes this year, and
a lot of holes there. You're probably talking, from what I would hear during the season, 14 starters, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that like, and I don't want anybody that I didn't, have as much to say about. The problem is that when I'm broadcasting the game, especially with offensive players, you have to talk about who's got the ball, right?
Yeah, you're focused on the guys that are putting the numbers up, because that's what you only have time to do.
Yeah, and listen, I know Colton Loy and Connor Thompson both probably if you ask Coach Hefner, probably the biggest contribution they're making is blocking, right? Because that's what tight ends do, I mean, and you'll see it occasionally, especially if they get out in the open field or something like that.
Sure.
But I don't want anyone to feel shortchanged. It's hard for me, there's
right.
to see it all without watching a lot of film.
When you do your depth chart, you don't have the depth chart of the 5 offensive and the 4 defensive line.
No. Although
you talk about more the D line when you have things that are doing good, but yeah, the O line, it's just, and you guys always allude to it. When the Hearts have a good game running the ball, you talk about, hey, what a great job the line's doing. There's just not a lot of time during the broadcast to say, hey, man,
they're
left side, the guard and tackle are doing a great job.
Well, and plus, like those guys on TV, by the way, they're not trying to scribble stats and stuff like that. They're just watching the game, so they can notice those things.
Plus, they've got spotters in their ear telling them. When you hear guys say, oh, this one's coming back, there was a hold on 66. They didn't see that. It's the spotter in their ear telling them it was a hold.
Yeah, I wish we had that. I wish that, I'll tell you, so Greg's been letting me do a little bit of the play-by-play.
Yeah, you've been doing a good job.
Generally the second quarter. But like games like yesterday, I almost
It's hard when Rochester's playing as fast as they are.
Yeah, I almost wanted to just say I can't do this, but I don't want to pass up the opportunity to try it. But I'm trying to write. And also I couldn't. Their scoreboard was so dim, and also I was blocked off from it a little bit, so I couldn't see how much time was left on the clock. Rochester, one thing, they're apparently getting turf in the next year or two, and probably like an entirely new stadium. But boy, they need it.
They're a little Spartan.
The turf there was not in fantastic shape. People were losing their footing.
I kept hearing you guys talk about that.
It was weird because once they got going, they were fine. But kick returners for both teams would try to plant their feet to get that first burst, and they'd spin out a little bit. But I can
was it like the old Casey Marshall wars back in the day when they just water the heck out of the field, make it a swamp?
I can see why they're not going to do much with it, because like, why would you get a new scoreboard when you're going to have a new facility pretty soon? It just, I don't know, it kind of surprised me. I just figured Rochester's football program, being the powerhouse that it is, that somebody would have already
have a great facility.
And also Rochester's the kind of, listen, it's the kind of community where the support, the community support and the money is probably there, right? Like, people aren't going to complain about, putting the money into it. I wouldn't think. It doesn't strike me as that. And they're, but hey, it was, they let their play on the field do the talking, and they're 9-1 and they're playing next week. So anyway, gave those seniors all a shout out. There's some guys coming back that I'm excited to see back, though. We talked about Michael Love. We talked about Weldon Dunstan. Both those guys are just sophomores. They're going to do some good things for the Hearts in the years to come. I'm glad that Mr. Middendorf, Eli Middendorf's going to get to come back. That's a good place to start on your line, having a big guy like that to create some havoc. And who knows, the thing is that you always say, well, I don't know. And people ask me every year, like, how the Heart's going to be. And I always
don't know.
I have no idea. Like, I got to see it. I just got to see it, because kids change so much. They changed so
It's
much.
not like basketball where you get to see a full season of JV
Yeah.
and you get a handle on, hey, this kid's helping him off the bench. He's going to do some things. It's different. Yeah, if the Hearts had Dunston and they had 3 wide receivers who were sophomores or juniors and they had had some things there, yeah, that'd be different. But it's a different season. It's a short season.
Andrew Lutz coming back is big. He's a very good receiver. So it's always, I think, nice to have that guy you can count on, like that has got a little bit of that experience. And boy, I glossed right over the fact that Armando Estrada is not just a defensive back as a senior, but one of the best, possibly, one of the better kickers that Effingham's ever had in the program. He's a record holder as far as single season field goals, the longest field goal, and
I guarantee you most touchbacks.
Yeah, I mean he touches it back probably 2 out of every 3 kickoffs.
I just wonder if schools are looking at him.
They probably ought to be. I mean, you could do worse. I don't know. Like the kid kicks 50-yarders in pregame. Like he can do it. Like not. I don't know if you want to ask him to do it in a game or not. Like, but depending on what the score was, you might like to see it. I mean, he's got the leg for it for sure. So
if it was a tie game and it was that versus a Hail Mary, hey, Armando, see what you got.
Yeah. I mean, and that's not something that a lot of high school teams have either.
No.
So it'll be interesting. As good a job as the Reese kid was doing kicking off for Rochester yesterday. He never sniffed the goal line. And I don't know.
He was still 10 yards short of Armando.
Yeah. And listen, that's still a good kickoff in high school to put it inside.
Yeah, and I heard the Hearts get what? They had one return almost to the 40.
Yeah, it was just a tough day all the way around. There were some good kick returns in there, but
right.
It's just, I don't know. What can I say? Sometimes the other team's just really good.
And that's the thing. And we said they had more than a puncher's chance. A lot of things had to go their way.
Some
they
things
showed the glimmer.
Some things go the other way, but
4 turnovers. I mean, that's the thing. Let's be brutally honest. It could have been 60-14.
Could have been. And conversely, I think if Effingham doesn't
give up that second quarter touchdown in the half,
or doesn't make a couple of the early mistakes it made in the third quarter, who knows? But again, what you can play what if all you want.
You can't give them more than 3 outs an inning. And
I think for Effingham to win that game, they'd have to play pretty much perfect, and they didn't. And
I think if you coach after me in the year and said, hey, here's your schedule. 4 of your opponents are still going to be playing in week 2, probably playing beyond that. And you're going to be down a touchdown at halftime to Rochester, he might have taken it.
Yeah, I think so. It's
the process, and it's not like, okay, Brett's going to take off 2 months now. No, he's already, I guarantee you he's thinking, okay, who we're going to plug in here? What do we got to do here? Who do we have to change their body to be able to help us at the next level? And, those kids, I guarantee you tomorrow morning are going to be busting tail in the weight room.
And again, there's guys that are on the coaching staff that have been there, quite a while now. And that's a big part of it. I mean, at this point, Obie Farmer's been around a while. Kern McNeely's been on the staff for quite a while. Aaron Adams has been around. He played all, McNeely and Adams both played it there, and now they're on the staff. That's a big part of it too, is being on the same page with those guys, and they do a great job as well.
I saw Obie this morning. We were having breakfast after church, and I tried to, he walked in as we were getting our ticket, and I tried to get him to buy breakfast, and he respectfully declined.
You should be buying for him, Saint, because we need to get him on here to talk about his team.
Well, that's coming up. We'll do that.
Yeah. we shouldn't. I guess we shouldn't need to bribe him, right? Like he wants to talk about his kids.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
that'll
looking
be
at this
fun.
all wrong. I'm looking at
I'll
this.
bring it up when he's on here, and I ask, oh, we'd have you on more often if you'd have bought my brackets.
We could maybe one of the assistant coaches would actually be a good guest. I'm just kind of brainstorming on the air, but that might be a good way to go. Like can't bother Coach Hefner every week, but
Sure.
it might be good to get one of the
During
assistants
football
on.
season, sure.
Yeah. Anyway, that's pretty much a wrap on the football year. Fun team to cover. This is my 12th year doing it on the radio, which is hard for me to believe, but Greg brought it up on the air. The last game that Effingham played before I came on board was at
Rochester.
Yeah. So, although I will tell you, I missed a game somewhere in there. I believe it was the trip to Paris one year early on in my time with the station. I had a
So you're not a Larry Wilson?
I'm not Iron Man exactly. I haven't done every game since then. I did miss one for a trip out to see a buddy in Ohio, but also. No, or was that that was no. I drove to Ohio after a game one time. This was when we went to Atlanta. It was Chipper Jones when he was retiring. We went to my whole family went down to the Braves game, and one of his last games against the Mets. That's what it was, his last homestand. And so I was like,
one of Larry's last home games, you went down to Atlanta?
We did. My daughter was she wasn't even a year old yet. And we went down and saw his retirement ceremony at Turner Field. And then the Mets won, and it wasn't much of a game, and it was hotter than hell. And my wife got splashed with ditch water by a truck passing by as we were walking to the stadium. It wasn't, some of it wasn't a great experience, but we were
Should have been at a football game, Whitey. Just saying.
Because that old press box at Paris, that thing,
I remember it.
I was glad not to have to sit in that thing. Okay. I don't know if things have gotten any better in Paris since then, but that was like one of the worst setups I've ever seen. I would be embarrassed to put people in that thing. Anyway.
All right, let's move on.
Let's move on.
Football, good season.
Yep.
Now, we have two other sports that we're still going on in the fall. Well, yeah, at least two. Yeah, just two. Volleyball, we've had 3 area schools move on to sectional. St. Anthony won the Oblong Regional over Cumberland. South Central won their regional over North Clay. And Windsor's Two Straws won their regional over Oakall Valley, I believe. They were all in 2, but I think the South Central North Clay thing went 3.
It did. Yeah. St. Anthony, and the interesting thing for all those is that, like, I wonder how many girls basketball coaches out there are thinking, we like to see our kids succeed, but also practice starts tomorrow. And
it's the same with football. It's the same with football. We'd like to see our kid. I mean, remember, Obie's group had 1 day of practice after that deep playoff run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the double-edged sword on Thanksgiving tournaments, is when you have very successful football programs. Newton, I remember having a skeletal crew in Thanksgiving tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Mount Carmel usually has a skeletal crew. Casey used to have of course, Casey's not very good this year. I mean, obviously, they didn't make the playoffs, but yeah, you've got some of those schools don't play Thanksgiving tournaments. It'll be, you're right, the girls' practice starts tomorrow.
My daughter had a pitching lesson with Lucy Fearday from St. Anthony today, and I asked her, I was like, so, will there be practice? And she's like, oh yeah, basketball practice is going to be 6 a.m. because we got the sectional. So hopefully they find time for a nap in there somewhere before they
that's what I had study halls for.
They're young also. Like, it's hard for me to envision it now, but I probably had that much energy once upon a time.
And then cross country,
Yes.
St. Anthony's boys qualified for state as a team across country, which is a great accomplishment.
Yeah.
And I believe Effingham girls had a girl qualified.
I know, yes, Effingham's, it was Jessica Larson who qualified. She ran an 18:31 in the 2A. I don't know the exact length of the course because they vary a little bit, but basically it's basically a 5K, maybe a little less, 3 miles.
Basically 3 miles. Now where they run at Detweiler in Peoria, great facility to watch a race. I've been up there a couple times.
Yeah. I have
It's
never
cool. Watching them start.
Yeah.
That's not for the weak of heart, man.
Do they? Okay, so they start. It's not. They don't do waves then or anything like that, right? Okay.
1A girls toe the line, bang.
So do they have to, like, do they get them all straight across, or do they have to? Okay. Because I was gonna say otherwise, like
every chute's probably 3 girls wide, so you stack usually you're stacked either two or 3-3, depending on how wide the chutes are. When Jessica ran at state, she wasn't too concerned about being in the mad dash getting off the line.
Yeah.
So yeah, her and her good friend Audrey Ebergy they let the group go and then they settled in.
Yeah.
I was like, I remember Ann goes, how are we going to find Jess in this mad start? I go, just don't watch the start. They'll be here. They'll be fine. They're not going to risk getting trampled.
Yeah, there's a lot more strategy to a cross country race than.
Well, you've got your rabbits. I've seen kids in some of those big meets go out and you're like, holy cow. And then, at about the 1 mile marker, the kid's on all fours puking,
Yeah. There's occasionally the kid that can just put the pedal to the metal from the beginning.
Well, you watch Anna Sophia run those races. She's the leader, and then her lead's bigger, and her lead's bigger, and
yeah.
And then right across the street there's a golf course, and they usually get at least 2 fairways just chewed the heck up by everyone because that's the parking.
Yeah.
And if it's been wet at all, Peoria is the only area in the state of Illinois wishing for no rain this week.
Yep. You said St. Anthony qualified as a team, finished 5th in their sectional. Griffin Elder was 11th place overall too in that sectional. He ran a 15:54. So, that's
who's they have 8 kids?
Yeah, Griffin Elder was 11th. Julius Ramos, 32nd, 16:33. Aiden Broniker was not too far behind him, 36th at 16:45. Conlon Walsh, 42nd in 16:52. Giovanni Buccio, Bucio, I assume is Buccio, 80th, 17:32. Noah Flagg, 89th, 17:47, and Vincent Vogel, 104th.
Yeah, that's awesome.
19. So those are the guys. Newton also had both their boys and girls teams qualified.
Oh, Newton did get both teams up there. Okay,
great. Yeah, Newton's boys. Let's wait a minute. No. Yeah, Newton's girls qualified as well. Okay. Newton's boys got 3rd, and their girls got 8th. So
I was AD. Our T-Town girls went up there as a team, and it was a little chilly.
That was the St. Joseph Ogden sectional, by the way, but they ran it in Champaign. So
ran it at Parkland. St. Joe has a big invitational. They run through the streets. I got a quick story to tell you. They run through the streets of St. Joe. So they close whatever highway that is, 131, whatever that is, that gets closed for the race. So they go down into town, loop through town, come back, and then they come around the school and then loop around, and they run about a 3:30 on the track to finish. Okay. 2:20, 3:30. I forget where they actually get on the track. So we're there, and when it's that drawn out of a course, you really can't be in one place and see a lot. So we would see the start, and then you go over here to the corner where they come up behind the high school and turn and start around the stadium complex. Well, we're sitting there watching, and the first runners aren't quite there yet. And I'm going to say it was Salt Fork. And if anyone from Salt Fork is listening and this wasn't your bus driver, I apologize. But all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's a short bus looking for a place to park, and he's on the road where the course is. He's right there. And people are like, whoa, whoa. And this guy's like, I'm looking for a place to park. And we're like, you're on the freaking race, man. It's like Herbie the Love Bug is going right down the middle of the race. And he kind of, I don't know if we just got him to sit still long enough for the leaders to go by in the girls or boys race, whichever it was. And then they got him off to the side street real quick. He's right and he's driving down the street. And we're like, no, buddy, whoa, you know.
Well,
it
sounds to me like upset. It sounds to me like they just didn't have the road barricaded off.
He found a way onto the course, man, and it was
that's funny.
I was like, wow.
Yeah.
So but it's a great race. It's cool to be there on the street and see these kids start out, they're packed in tight. They start sprinting down the street. It's really cool.
So yeah, state meet will be Saturday, right? And then
right. So really next week, let's do this. We may have a week or two off.
Okay.
Depending on, if anyone does it super well in volleyball or cross country.
Sure. Sounds good to me.
And then we can maybe plan our next show
around basketball.
2 weeks from tonight, having the girls coaches, the Holy Trinity girls coaches on.
You're going to have to work your booking skills, do your magic, your networking capabilities.
We can do that.
Well, I think you can. And I'm going to try to keep track of standings and scoring again.
Because we get really, really busy now, Dustin.
I'm going to try to be a little more prepared for it this time. And I'm going to try to get this. I'm saying it out loud here where somebody might hear it. Maybe it'll be a little extra motivation for them to let me do it. But maybe I could get the radio station to let me have a page on their site where I can put those standings. That way people can find them too. You know what I'm saying? I think that would be
well. And I'm working on maybe getting a guest every couple of weeks that does statewide rankings.
Yeah. Okay.
So there may be weeks we have 2 guests.
Sure.
Hey, if we can get Aaron on for, hey, we're going to do 10 minutes and just look at your rankings. Mm-hmm. We're not really going to go into in depth on a lot of stuff. And really, we're not going to look at 3A and 4A. I mean, yeah, we'll touch on 3A depending on how Effingham is in that. But if we're just looking 1A and 2A for the most part for statewide rankings. And then I've got, the wheels have been turning. My drive to Nashville last week, I got to do a lot of thinking. And wheels have been turning. I've got a couple, small groups of people I'd like to get on. Maybe who had basketball success. Maybe get them on here.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So we'll have to see.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm for whatever reason, I'm kind of hyped up for basketball season this year. I can't.
It's always fun. It's and we have our Tuesday. We have our next big Christmas tournament meeting. We've feel pretty good where we're at. I mean, I've got responses from all 16 teams, so we don't have that Thanksgiving surprise where, hey, we're not going to be there. Or, of course, we can still have the St. Thomas More. Hey, our kids don't get out of COVID quarantine until 2 days before the tournament, and we don't have time to prepare.
Yeah.
Don't think to see St. Hey, you know what, Whitey? Won't see St. Thomas More back in our tournament.
I didn't think so. I had kind of already figured that one out on my own, but do appreciate
grumpy old man in charge of the committee said, nope.
Well, you guys are in a good place where I think you can probably find somebody else without too much trouble.
We will have some talent this year. I'm going to tell you, overall individual talent, maybe the best tournament we've ever had. Everyone stays healthy between now and the tournament.
I had a guy from Highland. We had to sit in the bleachers to broadcast the Highland football game.
Yeah.
And he came up to me and asked, you're Effingham radio. And I said, yeah. He's like, will you be broadcasting every game from the Christmas tournament? And I said, well, our station only does, only does our local teams. We can't justify doing.
But every game will be on NFHS.
Is that right? Okay. Excellent. So
that's the plan.
I watched a lot of games. I subscribed to NFHS last year. And depending on the school and their setup, it's more difficult in some places to tell exactly what's going on, but it's
You're exactly right.
It's better than nothing though.
And I think as a tournament committee, we may get a subscription or two just to help us see some games, to help us when we do our seating committee.
Well, I'll tell you what it really helped me with was when the Neoga girls went on their run.
Yeah.
I was able to see. I was
some
able
of their opponents' games.
Yeah, get a look at some of those games, and it helps to not be surprised by, who's going to be contributing and how they play.
Who beat them in the semis? Bland or
in Neoga?
Yeah.
It was boy, you think that I would remember, right?
Beld or Bland or
the girl. So the girl who
she went to Eastern. Girl who beat him went to Eastern.
She went to Eastern. Here, I'm gonna look it up because I don't want to get it wrong. It's not a school that I'm familiar with, so I don't have instant recall on it. I wanted to say Serena, but that's who they played in the third place game. So it was Brimfield. That's right, Brimfield.
There we go. I was in the neighborhood.
Brimfield, yeah, and they had a very talented young lady on the team who went on to play at Eastern, and I'm looking up her name now. Let's see, Ella Loon was her name. Mm-hmm. Yep. So I'll be keeping an eye on. College basketball getting ready to start too.
Yeah.
Illinois had an exhibition game against.
Illinois football, big win, 7-1 now. Michigan State. Hey, Michigan State may be missing some players.
I saw that.
I didn't get it. I heard it on the radio today. Jim Harbaugh calls it assault.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
It was 10 guys. 10 from the guys on the ESPN radio I heard this morning. It said it was 10 Michigan State guys beating the crap out of one Michigan player.
I saw the video of it. I'd like to see how that came to be.
Well, and they said that's authorities are involved.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe don't have both teams run down the tunnel at the same time.
Well, did it happen out on the field or in the tunnel? Where was it?
They were definitely inside. What I saw was going on was indoors because the guy got kind of got shoved into a double door.
I haven't seen any video. I just heard on ESPN radio talking about it.
Yeah.
They watched it and they said it was
way
over the top.
Football's such an emotional. You got to get yourself to be, I think, an effective football player. You got to get yourself worked up into a frenzy.
Oh, it is an emotional game, but
I'm not making excuses for anybody. I'm just saying that when you have two groups of guys that are in that state, right, and then you're
high on testosterone.
Yeah, now you need to all mix in together and run to lock.
I agree, but they've had problems with Michigan State on the field after games, on the field pre-games. It's how about here's where you warm up. Here's where you warm up. I don't care what your tradition is. You're not going to walk arm in arm through the middle of these guys warming up, and you're not going to sit over there and yap. No.
I just know that I'm looking more and more forward to Illinois and Michigan in a couple 3 weeks. I think
Illinois handles Michigan State. It's going to get interesting.
Yeah,
well, they're what, 13th? I saw in the coaches poll they're 13th today. So
they've got Michigan State and Purdue left, and then
Michigan.
We don't get many Facebook comments, by the way, when we post, but one of them this last week did.
That's an Ole Miss fan who's grumpy.
Listen, I will be the first to tell you. Listen, the Big Ten West is not like.
Yeah, I agree.
But
you know what? They're going to probably be in the championship game of the Big Ten.
I mean,
regardless of how soft the West is versus the East.
You still
I
got to win the
understand.
games. You still got to win the games. I don't
Yeah.
know. You know, I mean,
They still have to beat Purdue. Because
yeah.
really, that's the only one they got to win now. They got a 2-game lead on everybody else on the West.
Yeah, I don't know. You can't look past anybody when you're especially.
I don't.
But
Michigan and Michigan State aren't in the West.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I'm just saying that like Purdue.
Because I think the standings are based on who you play in the West. Because when you play a crossover, someone could have crossed over and played Michigan and Ohio State, and somebody could have played Indiana and Rutgers, just not balanced. So I think it's pretty well based on how you perform on your side.
Yeah, so it's true that Purdue game would determine the West. It's certainly a huge game, but Purdue overall seems to be a weaker team, but that's why these games don't get played on paper. So,
hey, I'm getting texts from my wife saying I got to go.
All right, well, we have, as usual, we start out trying to keep it short.
I know I got to go visit with the Hall of Famer.
We keep going long. We don't even get a chance to talk about how the Phillies did get one win, but I don't think they'll get I don't see them getting another. And
I've watched 0 innings of the World Series.
Well,
Hey, Nolan Arenado's coming back.
Yeah, I saw that. It's an interesting decision for him, given his.
It really is.
But
you could be. I'm sure the union wants him to opt out.
Sure.
And go for more money because then he sets the bar higher. But that's good.
It's that
and you could have had an agreement with the Cardinals. I will opt out and then sign the next day with you for this.
Yeah.
But I like his comments because he's excited and he likes where it's going. So, he's had conversations with Mozeliak and Gersh about where they're going.
Well, I find it distressing, but what are you going to do?
Hey, here's your next Cardinal jersey you may have to get next year.
Okay.
Ohtani.
Okay. Nobody wants that. Like
What do you mean nobody wants that?
Nobody wants that.
Nobody who's not a Cardinal fan wants
Well, of course. Nobody who matters.
That kills 2 birds with 1 stone. That's a left-handed bat and a pitcher.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think the Angels. Yeah,
you might get him and Trout.
You got me all flustered because I don't want to think about it. Okay. All right. Let's go see your dad. Go see your dad.
I'll go see Pops.
Later. All
right. See you, bud.
Bye.